will never forget the exact moment my world fell apart. Across the dinner table, he stared at me, barely able to hide his smirk as he twirled his wine glass. I had cooked his favorite meal, believing we were celebrating something special, but I had no idea that the only person celebrating would be him. "I'm trading you in for a younger model," he said, as if he were simply upgrading a car or getting a new phone. At first, I thought he was joking, but then he leaned back in his chair with that same smug expression, and my stomach knotted. "You're serious?" I whispered, feeling the floor give way beneath me. "Completely. She's 25. Gorgeous and everything I need. You? You've served your purpose." He shrugged. It felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. How do you even begin to process something like that? How do you sit there and watch the person you built a life with, the man you sacrificed for, look at you like you're an old product on a shelf? But what truly made my blood run cold was when he leaned in and said, "And just so you know, I already emptied our joint account. The house is in my name, the car too. I made sure you'd have nothing. Let's see how well you do without me." I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw that glass of wine right in his face, but I didn't. I just sat there, my hands clenched under the table, my nails digging into my palms so hard I thought they might draw blood. Because what he didn't know was that I had a secret weapon of my own. For days, I let him believe he had won. I played the part of the devastated wife, slowly packing my bags, my hands trembling just enough to make him feel satisfied. He didn't even bother to hide his texts from her anymore, laughing at his phone and leaving his credit card statements in plain sight. Restaurant bills, hotel stays, and shopping sprees that I knew weren't for me. He had become sloppy, overconfident, and that was his first mistake. His second mistake was underestimating me. You see, while he was showing off his new model, I was quietly putting my plan into action. It took a few calls, a few meetings with the right people, lawyers, financial advisors, a private investigator I had on speed dial, all within hours of his announcement. The best part? He had no idea. The day I left, he didn't even say goodbye. He barely looked up from his phone as I wheeled my suitcase through the door. "Don't come crying back when you realize you can't survive without me," he muttered, not even bothering to glance my way. I didn't reply. I just stepped outside, my heart pounding with anticipation, not fear, because what he didn't know was that he had already lost everything. I walked out of that house a broke woman, but I knew without a doubt I wouldn't stay that way for long. I didn't look back, but inside I was smiling. Not because I was free yet, but because I knew something he didn't. My so-called husband thought he had outplayed me, stripping me of everything and leaving me with nothing but the clothes on my back. He thought I would crumble, that I would beg and regret not fighting for him. He had no idea that the game had only just begun. For the first few weeks, I let him think he had won, that I was struggling and barely getting by. Meanwhile, I was working in silence, watching everything unfold exactly as I had planned. What he didn't know was that the house might have been in his name, but the land it sat on was a different story. I had bought it years ago, before we were even married, and I never added his name to the deed. That meant while he owned the house, he was about to be served with an eviction notice for the land it stood on. A little legal loophole I had been advised about months ago, back when I first started to see the signs of his wandering eyes. I had prepared for this moment long before he even had the courage to say the words. The first time I saw his face when he received the legal notice, I knew the fun was about to begin. He stormed into my apartment, the same one he assumed I could never afford, slamming the papers on the table, his face red with fury. "What the hell is this?" he barked. I took my time, sipping my coffee and scrolling lazily through my phone. "Looks like you're being evicted," I said, finally meeting his eyes. He looked ready to explode. "You can't do this. That's my house." I shrugged, feigning sympathy. "Your house, my land. And legally, I can have that land cleared anytime I want. So unless you plan on living in a tent, you might want to start packing." I could see the exact moment it hit him. The realization that he wasn't the mastermind he thought he was. That I wasn't the weak, naive woman he had underestimated. That despite all his plans, he was standing in front of me completely powerless. But that was just the beginning. I had done my research and knew all about his finances. The money he had siphoned from our accounts, the shady deals, the credit cards he had opened in my name, thinking I'd never find out. What he didn't know was that I had already frozen every account linked to my name, flagged the fraudulent activity, and sent his entire financial history to the IRS for a little surprise audit. The day his accounts were locked and he realized he had no access to his stolen money was the day he called me for the first time in months. His voice wasn't cocky this time. It wasn't filled with arrogance or amusement. It was shaking. "Listen," he started, trying to keep his composure. "I think there's been a mistake. My accounts—" "Oh," I interrupted. "You mean my accounts? The ones you drained, thinking I wouldn't notice?" He went silent. I smiled. "Yeah, about that. You might want to check your mail. I hear the IRS is very interested in talking to you." His curses echoed through the phone, but I had already hung up. By the time I saw him again, he wasn't the same man who had smirked at me over dinner. He wasn't the same man who had sneered when he told me he was trading me in for a younger model. He was a man who had lost everything. His house, his money, his new model, who had left the second she realized his credit cards didn't work anymore. He was broke, desperate, and standing in front of me like a man who had just realized he was never the predator he always thought he was. He was the prey. "I made a mistake," he muttered, looking at the floor like a scolded child. "I was an idiot. I didn't mean what I said." "Stop!" I cut him off, stepping forward. "Let me ask you something. When you told me I was replaceable, that you had found someone better, that you had taken everything and left me with nothing, did you mean it?" His mouth opened, but nothing came out. He had no words left, no excuses, no lies that could fix what he had done. I leaned in, lowering my voice so he would never forget what I said next. "Because I meant everything I did to you." With that, I walked away, because the truth was, I never needed revenge. Karma had already handled it for me.